Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we're here to dive into two big-time receiver names, one more so than the other, that the Washington Commanders are apparently attached to by ESPN and Bleacher Report writers. We're going to dive into why and why not when it comes to Davante Adams from the New York Jets and Christian Kirk from the Jaguars. Of course, Christian Kirk has the strong connection to our offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury. We're going to dive into all of that and more about how realistic it is and everything. But first of all, I have a trivia question for you, and I'll give y'all the answer at the end of the video. The question is, and this is a pretty easy one, I ain't going to lie. What team did the Commanders beat on Monday Night Football in 2022? Come on, man. But I'm going to give y'all the answer at the end of the video anyway. And before we dive into everything, make sure you stiff on that like button, stiff on the subscription button, and stiff on the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. I know I've been busy, but I promise to y'all in like a few days, man, we're going to get back to like 2-3 videos a day. I'm not playing with y'all. I have so many video ideas. I know I keep saying it, but y'all don't. If y'all could just see my screen right now, I think the next video that I'm mainly focusing on and trying to cook up for y'all is another mock off season. Either way, let's go ahead and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so let's go ahead and get this out the way first, because I know a lot of y'all saw it, but just in case, I'm pretty sure we are done in the T. Higgins sweepstakes. I don't think we're going to necessarily compete because apparently the Bengals, reported by trustworthy sources, the Bengals are planning to use a franchise tag on T. Higgins, and the franchise tag window officially opens for teams today, actually. That's literally today when you can start franchise tagging people, and then the deadline is a little while after that, right like before the start of free agency, early March. Yeah, actually, instead of just, throwing out a general cloudy answer of when the tag is, I just went ahead and looked it up real quick. It's March 4th by 4 p.m. Eastern time. They always say New York time, but either way, that's the deadline for franchise tagging or transitioning players. So they have, as of today, February 18th, all the way up till March 4th to decide what they're going to do with T. Higgins. Don't be surprised if you see sometime soon after I put out this video, it's 8:17 a.m., maybe some point today, they'll just go ahead and announce that they have officially franchise tagged them. So I want to go ahead and just get this whole T. Higgins thing out the way real quick. Now, his mother was really upset. Now, apparently, she's recently denied this tweet was about the Bengals or anything, but like soon after that announcement came out, I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to necessarily read that on YouTube, but she basically called them selfish, and she was really upset about it. And it's crazy too, because the report that they're gonna franchise tag them came like just a day after there was a report that the free agent market for him would probably be like a 4-year, just $20 million contract with $85 million guaranteed. That's what people were projecting for him. And then out of nowhere, the Bengals were like, nope, because we definitely can't give you that. So we're going to go ahead and franchise tag you so you can stay here. But I wouldn't be surprised if they try to tag and trade him maybe. But I don't see the Commanders taking part in that, because I was already looking like T. Higgins, even if he does hit free agency and we don't have to trade for him, he's just a free agent. All you got to do is sign him. You don't have to give up any draft picks. I was already looking at that like $33 million per year that people were starting to report. Like, I don't see us going after that. I would love to get T. Higgins, but $33 million a year is pretty crazy, man. And then now, not only will you have to pay him that ridiculous amount of money, but you also got to give the Bengals draft picks as well. So we could just go ahead and move on from the T. Higgins thing. Maybe I'll still bring him up and talk about him in random videos, but T. Higgins is officially moved to like dead last on the list of wide receiver options, because I just don't see it happening. Now, moving on now to one of the two receivers that we definitely need to talk about today, and that is a fairly realistic option, at the very least more realistic than T. Higgins is right now, and that's Davante Adams. The Commanders were named one of the top landing spots for soon-to-be released wide receiver Davante Adams. Let's start with that, that released part. Like, where did this come? Why are the Jets releasing Davante Adams? Well, shouts out to The Athletic. I believe this was Ben Standig with this one right here. You had, it's just the whole Athletic staff, and I believe every team's athletic reporter basically was responsible for their team. Like for us, we had Ben Standig for the Washington Commanders, and it's like an article breaking down all of the potential cuts that every team could make. Of course, Ben Standig listed Jonathan Allen with no guaranteed money, and basically you can cut him, save a lot of cap space. You don't take on any dead cap, things like that. So that's pretty obvious. But for the New York Jets, they said, now that we know Aaron Rodgers will not be returning, that's official, he'll also likely be cut and designated post June 1st, similar to Deebo Samuel potentially, we already talked about in the previous video. Don't expect his two running mates, Davante Adams and Allen Lazard, to return either. The whole Packers effect, the whole Packers aura is being let go. Anybody that had anything to do with the Packers, the Jets are done with you. Aaron Glenn is coming out and purging anything Green Bay from the Jets. Adams played well for the Jets, but he only came to New York to play with his friend Aaron Rodgers. His contract is mostly non-guaranteed, so cutting or trading him would save them $29.8 million in salary cap space with only an $8.3 million dead cap charge. That's not bad at all. The Jets don't have a lot of cap casualty options outside of the two Packers receivers, so it sounds like they're more likely to get cut so that they can get under the cap space, get back into the positive and potentially go sign outside free agents to make their team better to be able to compete for next year. So they're looking around like, we don't have a lot of cap space to work with. Davante Adams and Allen Lazard are literally our best options there, along with Aaron Rodgers. So not only is it a Green Bay Packers thing, it's also a contract situation where it just makes too much sense to cut all of those guys attached to the Packers. So then, shortly after that, the Commanders were named as a potential landing spot for Davante Adams in 2025. Shouts out to Dean Jones of Rico's Rag. Christopher Knox from the Bleacher Report named the Commanders and Los Angeles Chargers as possible landing spots for Adams. So basically, he considers us one of the two top options for Davante Adams that makes the most sense. The analyst added that more teams could enter the fray if the wideout reduces his contract demands. But as long as he's asking for potentially a lot of money, which people are expecting, really the Chargers and the Commanders are the only two teams that have enough of a need and enough cap space to make it happen. He said, quote, the Washington Commanders could use a high-end number 2 wide receiver opposite of Terry McLaurin. And that's crazy that we're talking about Davante Adams as a high-end wide receiver too. He was just literally arguably the best wide receiver in the entire NFL just 3 years ago. But continuing on, and have $80.5 million in projected cap space, third most in the NFL. The Los Angeles Chargers have $65.6 million in projected cap room and could use a veteran to partner with young wideouts like Ladd McConkey, Georgia Dog, balling out is criminal, he wasn't a Pro Bowler, and Quentin Johnston. Adams is likely to have a very limited market unless he's willing to take a substantial pay cut, which a lot of people seem to think he will not. A lot of people think he wants to go ahead and get paid. He may want to go play for a Super Bowl contender or at least a playoff contending team, somebody that will at least compete and, have a chance to play in January and February. But he may be prioritizing money as well. And again, the Commanders and the Chargers are pretty much the only two teams that have both a strong need for a wide receiver like Davante Adams and also potentially enough cap space to give him what he wants in another contract after he gets cut. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm definitely leaning more so towards a no for Davante Adams. First of all, I still haven't necessarily gotten over the disrespect that he put onto the entire burgundy and gold fan base, and even like the city of DC. Like, he even talked trash about the city, not even just the team, not even just the fan base that roots for the team, but even just the city. And this was just a few months ago. But even just beyond that, even if we can get past all of that, if we would have signed him and he balls out for us, we would forgive him very quickly. He would forgive us. He would love our even though, when he did talk about the fan base and stuff like that, he was talking more so the Dan Snyder era. He was not talking about Josh Harris. This is before the whole Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and all that type of stuff. This is before we ever even drafted Jaden Daniels. This was a completely different culture. So you can't knock him too much, but it's still a little, little sour taste right there, a little tension right there between Davante Adams and the Commanders fan base, understandably. But even if we were to get over that, secondly, that boy is about to probably be asking for more money than he's probably worth at this point. He's probably still really good, don't get me wrong, and would easily step in to be our second best receiver by a wide gap, big gap. But are you still getting elite Davante Adams at this point? Look at it like this. Garrett Wilson, who is a great wide receiver that I'm even willing to trade for. I would give up draft picks to get Garrett Wilson, I'm not going to lie. But some people worry about his drops in his hands and how inconsistent he may be there. And Garrett Wilson had 6 drops in 152 targets in 2024. And again, That scares people away from him. Meanwhile, Davante Adams had 10 drops on only 135 targets. So that's 4 more drops in 17 less targets. And again, people are worried about Garrett Wilson's drops. So if you're worried about Garrett Wilson's hands, then you have to be worried about Davante Adams' hands, right? Also, Davante does have that diva attitude to where if things aren't going well, he's gonna let it affect him on and off the field with like pouting, not giving it his all on the field and taking plays and even games off, complaining to the media. Now, I don't expect us to be in a situation where he would even have a reason to act like that, because I'm expecting us to be Super Bowl contenders this next season. And Jaden Daniels is way better than anything 2024 Aaron Rodgers had in the tank. So Davante Adams will really have no reason to complain over here, but it's still a weird culture fit. Like, especially having Terry McLaurin on one side where he had the worst quarterback situation of all time, arguably in NFL history for a wide receiver. And he never, ever complained. Davante Adams had like a year and a half of bad quarterback play. Maybe you can stretch it to 2. And he was already throwing fits and literally skipping practices and not playing in the game and all types of stuff. So it's just a weird culture fit. I just feel like that's a weird fit to have Terry McLaurin, the model citizen wide receiver, everybody who you should hope to, live up to be. And that's like literally who you should look up to. That's who wide receivers should be. Then you have Davante Adams over here pouting because he's not getting the ball and his quarterback sucks. But at the end of the day, Davante Adams is the type of addition that if Adam Peters made the decision to go and get him, I would give Davante the super benefit of the doubt and only look at it from all of the positives and potentials of the move and things like that, just simply because I respect Adam Peters and his decision making that much already. I mean, he earned the benefit of the doubt before this 2024 season even happened. Then after what we just saw in this 2024 season, if you're not giving Adam Peters the utmost benefit of the doubt, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know who you could give it to. So it's one of those situations where I'm kind of like on Davante Adams, but especially for the price and the culture fit as well. And then also the drops, you got to worry about that. But at the same time, if Adam Peters wants Davante Adams, then I'm pretty sure it's going to work out as a best case scenario, because pretty much everything Adam Peters has done since he's gotten here is worked out in a best case scenario situation. I don't know why he was stopped with arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL just a couple of years ago. But again, I don't necessarily see Adam Peters going and getting like a Davante Adams, even if he does become a free agent and you don't even have to trade for him. But remember, the Commanders are expected to target some other wide receivers this offseason to complement two-time Pro Bowler Terry McLaurin, according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. Remember, it was reported by him that the Commanders will probably do whatever it takes to bring in a running mate to Terry McLaurin before the draft even starts. I mean, and I do expect us to go and get a true wide receiver too in free agency well before the draft. That way we don't have to take a wide receiver in the first round and hope that that guy that we drafted in the first round balls out immediately, because with our current Super Bowl window, we don't have time to be playing around with a receiver right now. We need a guy that if we draft him in the first round, we need him to go crazy day one. Step up as a definitive wide receiver to day one. Even compete. I mean, ideally we have a situation where it's like a 1A, 1B, not even like a definitive 1 and 2. So like we would need to see that drafted receiver is great even before training camp even started for me to be comfortable going into the season. And that doesn't seem likely to come from a draft pick, especially with this latest we're drafted in the first round, 29th overall. So there is a clear need and hunger for a true running mate for Terry McLaurin in free agency or by trade, because we can't wait till the draft for that. We cannot wait until the draft for that. I just don't see it happening. But even with all of that being the case, I just simply don't expect it to be Davante Adams that we get as a true running mate to Terry McLaurin. Even as much as we need a wide receiver, a veteran guy in free agency or via trade, I still don't see it being Davante Adams, me personally. But again, it's one of those things where if we do end up doing it, shouts out to Adam Peters. In Adam Peters, I trust, greatest benefit of the doubt. Now let's move on to the second receiver that we got to talk about today. And this time is Bill Barnwell of ESPN, who's been brought up a lot lately, especially concerning the Commanders. He's done a lot of snooping around, talking to trustworthy sources, being like in the in crowd. He's kind of been our slight like Jeremy Fowler, Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport replacement, while those guys have kind of been quiet and chilling for a lot of the part of this offseason so far. Bill Barnwell's kind of been carrying as far as like rumors and reports going. Well, he talked about the possible cut candidate of Christian Kirk. He said, quote, in this article, former Arizona coach Cliff Kingsbury, now the offensive coordinator in Washington, raved about Kirk as, quote, one of my favorite players I've ever been around, unquote, and the Commanders need to add help at wide receiver beyond Terry McLaurin. Just to let you know, Bill Barnwell, just yesterday, February 17th, did an entire huge article, like really long, 2025 NFL offseason, all 17 wide receivers available, whether it's through free agency. He had like 2 candidates that could be traded for, like Tyreek Hill, or then you have 4 players who could be released. You have 6 free agents hitting the market as pure undrafted, unrestricted free agents, and then you have the best of the rest, so 5 under the radar wide receivers as well. So basically, he did a deep dive into all 17 receivers that are realistically available this offseason, whether you got to trade for them, sign them as a free agent, do whatever you got to do. And so when he got to Christian Kirk under his cap cut candidates, along with who we just talked about, Davante Adams, he pointed out 2024 stats: 27 catches, 379 yards, and only 1 touchdown in 8 games. And entering the 2025 season, he's 28 years old. He said Kirk might have been a victim of his own success. After a breakout season in 2021, the Jaguars signed him to what was a stunning deal at the time. His 4-year, $72 million pack was a desperate move from a front office that just wanted to get solid receivers alongside Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I was looking at them insanely crazy. I mean, the super side eye when they signed him to that contract. I'm still baffled, and now they're paying for it. Playing in an every down role and running the 6th most routes of any receiver in 2022, he then racked up 1,108 yards and 8 touchdowns on a team that reached the playoffs. But I mean, to be running the 6th most routes by any receiver in 2022 and still only got 1,108 yards, even that's like a little bit of a, I don't know, man. That's a little crazy. Since then, Kirk has 1,166 yards over the ensuing 2 seasons combined, with injuries including a broken collarbone last October, limiting him to 20 games over that span. His 2.1 yards per route run over those 2 seasons is above average. I mean, that's being very complimentary too. That's being very positive about it. But he has also dropped 7 of his 130 targets and lost 2 fumbles. Scary hand situation. Not even just drops, throwing the ball to him wise, but fumbles as well. Considering Kirk took 3/4 of his snaps from the slot last season and doesn't have the size to line up outside, he profiles as a moderate floor, low ceiling receiver. While Kirk isn't a bad player, he has become a sort of a cautionary tale for teams that just want to spend whatever they can to get competent players in their lineup. He was competing for regular work with Rondale Moore in 2021 when he had a career year, at which point the Jaguars decided to pay Christian Kirk market-altering money. His 2022 season was a sign that he could hold up with heavier volume. I mean, he had 1 season where he was fully healthy and played every game, but it was also a sort of a deal that kept Jacksonville from making bigger splashes at other positions of need. Good organizations find their Kirks in the draft or even on the waiver wire. Bad organizations pay a premium to find their Kirks because they're not confident they can develop their own. Thank you, Bill Barnwell. Hey, man, talk to these boys, man. That's a bar. Kirk has $16.2 million in unguaranteed money upcoming his final year of his deal, which is untenable given his recent impact. Former Arizona coach Cliff Kingsbury, now the offensive coordinator in Washington, raved about Kirk as, quote, one of my favorite players I've ever been around, unquote, and the Commanders need to add help at wide receiver beyond Terry McLaurin. Luke McCaffrey should have a larger role in his second NFL season, but it wouldn't be shocking if Kirk reunited with his old coach to play in the slot for Jaden Daniels. Shouts out to Bill Barnwell for all of that. And then shouts out to Serena Burks of Commanders Wire as well for taking us back to the Kingsbury connection. Because remember, Kingsbury coached Kirk in Arizona from 2019 to 2021, so there's already a relationship between the two men. Kirk enjoyed his best NFL season under Kingsbury in 2021. He can line up in the slot, giving Jaden Daniels another outlet while Terry McLaurin stretches the length of the field. If the Jaguars do cut Kirk, it wouldn't be surprising if Kingsbury tracks him down and he suits up in the burgundy and gold this fall. I wouldn't be surprised at all either. But just to remind you, this past 2024 season, he had a 67.9 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus, which was ranked 62nd out of 98 wide receivers. That's not good at all. Receiving grade 63rd out of 98 wide receivers with a 68.2. Not good numbers at all. And on top of that, I mean, drops with the 3 Like, mind you, 3 drops and only 47 targets is an insane rate. That's actually one of the worst in the NFL. But he was 25th in yards per reception with 14. So, you know, at least he was top 25 in yards per reception. He was 18th in average depth of target. You know, maybe you can look at those specific things and be like, okay, Cliff Kingsbury can figure out a way to maximize that type of value. But I mean, even just throughout his entire career, I mean, he had a 67.9 grade this past season, even though he only played in 8 games and only had 1 touchdown. You know, the most touchdowns he's had in the season was 8 in 2022 with Jacksonville, the first year that they signed him to that ridiculous money. Outside of that, his next most was 6. The next most after that was 5. Like, these are the seasons we're talking about. 2024, he only had 1. Pro Football Focus gave him a 67.9 grade last year, 71.1 the year before that, a 74.2 his best year of his career, arguably, at least with the Jacksonville Jaguars wise. And then 2021, a 72.7, his best year with the Arizona Cardinals under Cliff Kingsbury. And before that, a 62.3, 62.5, and as a rookie, 70.3. Just basically consistently average. Nothing amazing, nothing anywhere near worth the contract that he got with the Jaguars. And yeah, I remember thinking that the Jaguars, again, were really like crazy for resetting the wide receiver market for him. But at the same time, currently in 2025, bringing Christian Kirk in to be your wide receiver 3 or maybe even your wide receiver 4 on a really cheap deal, I mean, hey, which he may be willing to do, especially after robbing the Jaguars for so much free money and to potentially play for like a Super Bowl contender like us. And then also, don't forget, he may be able to compete for a returner role as well here. I mean, Jamison Crowder's only getting older. And then Olamide Zaccheaus, we saw he couldn't really do it. And I like Luke McCaffrey as a kick returner potentially, but he's still not solidified. Oh, we got to make sure he starts a kick returner. He shows some promise, but I'm still looking at kick returner as one of our needs this offseason. Kick returner, punt returner, all of that, especially if we don't bring back Jamison Crowder. But go look at Christian Kirk's highlights from college. He returned multiple punts and kickoffs for touchdowns for Texas A&M. And I know the kickoff rules are different now in the NFL, but you could at least let him compete. So maybe there's some additional value there for very cheap. And again, speaking of cheap, depending on the price, I'm actually pretty down for this. I'm just worried about his recent injury history, though. I mean, that's probably the thing that concerns me the most, because remember, he broke his collarbone during a game against the Green Bay Packers in October of 2020, this past season, missed the rest of the season. They ended up putting him on injury reserve. That was it. And then he's also had other injuries, like a core muscle injury in 2023 that ended his season early that year as well. I mean, he played in all 17 games in 2022, but he only played in 12 in 2023 and 8 in 2024. And even going before that, he played 14 in 2020, 13 in 2019, and 12 in 2018. Like, he's just a guy that outside of the 2022 season, he's generally been a guy that you're going to expect to miss at least 5-7 games for you in any given season. But if he can stay healthy, which seems very possible with this medical and training staff that we've assembled here. I mean, we got 20 games out of injury prone. That was the tag on Zach Ertz before we signed him. Injury prone Zach Ertz this past season. 20 straight games. I'm actually down for this sign. I think that, you know, especially if it comes very cheap. That's the only way. Like the same money that you would give like a De'Ami Brown or a Olamide Zaccheaus or something like that, then that's cool. And most importantly, the most important part of all of this, if you do end up signing Christian Kirk, you have to realize that this is not your wide receiver 2 at all. I'm even thinking about maybe wide receiver 4. Maybe even wide receiver 3 is too rich if you're trying to be a true Super Bowl contender. So my point is, even if you sign Christian Kirk, you need to know that you still need to go out there and get another top wide receiver in free agency or via trade, whatever. Like even after you sign Christian Kirk, trading for Garrett Wilson or signing like a Chris Godwin are for sure options that are still on the table. Christian Kirk better not be your big time free agency signing on like the offensive side of the ball. He should be like, oh yeah, we did sign Christian Kirk too. Like when we get into like mandatory minicamp OTAs and he's out there, it's like, oh, well, we did sign that Christian Kirk guy. That's all it should be. He should not be one of our headlines for our free agency class at all. With all of this money that we have to spend, with us trying to compete for Super Bowls, there's no way Christian Kirk is and the Commanders have signed Christian Kirk and everybody's talking about it on ESPN. No. Shouldn't be that at all. So Davante Adams, again, depending on the price, I guess he would have to come cheaper than what I'm expecting him to. So that's why I'm just assuming that's a no. And then Christian Kirk, only if he's dirt cheap. Like the money that you would pay Olamide Zaccheaus cheap. not wide receiver 2, maybe not even necessarily wide receiver 3. Like, I would honestly give De'Ami Brown more money than I would give Christian Kirk. Like, if De'Ami Brown's your wide receiver 3, I can see Christian Kirk being like your wide receiver 2. So this is a guy that isn't really worth talking about too much. He's just high profile because of the money that he got in that contract, that stupid contract that the Jaguars gave him, and then also his connection to Cliff Kingsbury. Outside of that, Christian Kirk is not a needle mover. But before we get up out of here, I also want to let y'all know and update y'all on the fact that John Com did let everybody know that Marty Hurney's contract with the Commanders has expired and he is no longer with the franchise. He had been listed as an advisor for the past year after serving as assistant GM with Ron Rivera while Ron Rivera was here. Then shouts out to Pedro Smith. Make sure you follow him on Twitter, subscribe to him on YouTube, all of that, man. He asked, assuming that Martin Mayhew is still around, John Com said yeah, was hired to a new position, and Hurney was just never around in the building. He had no effect on anything. He was just in the front office on paper, but he never contributed anything, basically, is what John Com saying. John Com also updated by saying, by the way, this isn't a surprise. Was always expected, but he's no longer listed on the website, so now it's official. No more Marty Hurney. So one less Carolina Panther in the front office, I guess. Also, before we get up out of here, yesterday, shouts out to Steve Wyche for pointing out the fact that every NFL team had scouts and representatives at the HBCU Combine in New Orleans yesterday. So, hey, man, shouts out to that. I felt like I really had to salute that. I love to hear it, man. So that sounds like even the Commanders may have sent some people to the HBCU Combine, and I love that. Keep giving that more love, more attention. Keep supporting the HBCU Combine, man. Let's get more attention towards that, man. I might even break down some HBCU players that maybe the Commanders can look at, maybe like late in the draft or undrafted free agents, because I really feel like we need to put a bigger spotlight on that. So again, shouts out to Steve Wyche for pointing that out as well. Thank you for that update. Shouts out to him. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. If you made it this far in the video, again, as always, man, I salute to you, man. Making it to the end of these videos as long as they are. I know my videos are typically longer than most people's, so I really appreciate you. And again, the answer to the trivia question, Philadelphia Eagles, Week 10, the score was 32-21. I'm pretty sure all of us remember that. But just in case if you didn't, that's the answer right there. Really appreciate all of y'all, man. Appreciate you again for making this far in the video. Of course, let me know in the comment section. Like, I'm really interested in seeing how y'all feel about Davante Adams. Like, is it a straight up yes, straight up no? Or maybe are you somewhere in the middle like me where it's like, what are we talking price-wise? What money is Davante Adams asking for? And, of course, it has to be after he's cut. I'm not trading for Davante Adams. So, after he's cut, he's an unrestricted free agent. You can go sign him. What are you willing to give Davante Adams? Or are you just straight up no? As far as culture fit, him talking trash about the fan base, you're just like, even if he's coming for a ridiculously cheap deal, you don't want nothing to deal with him, especially with the drops as well. And how you feel about Christian Kirk? Do you want him? Do you not? What are you willing to give him? Again, like I said, I'm not even giving Christian Kirk De'Ami Brown money. I'm talking about nearly veteran minimum Olamide Zaccheaus type of money. But let me know how y'all feel about Christian Kirk. If you don't want him at all for any reason, let me know all of that. I really appreciate y'all. Of course, I'm going to try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible. I'm going to catch y'all later. Leave a like on the way out. I'm out.